Wow, that looks amazing. I like your SpongeBob drawing. Thanks. I like the spaceship you drew. It's really cool. Daddy. You're home. Oh no, I almost dropped it. You saved it just in time.
Careful with that cabbage, sweetie.
Everyone, come eat.
Rumi, you did a great job.
All right, kids, it's time to get ready for bed. Do you want me to tell you a good night story?
Yes.
Yes. Your stories are the best.
It was supposed to be a simple shopping trip. That is genuinely all it was ever supposed to be. A simple, ordinary, completely uneventful Saturday afternoon shopping trip. No concerts, no rehearsals, no magical islands, no missing cats, no unmapped dream kingdoms. Just Rumi, Mira and Zoey going to the Starlight Mall on a Saturday afternoon to do normal human things like look at shoes and eat food court noodles, and argue pleasantly about whether a particular jacket was worth the price, which it absolutely was, Mira. It was a great jacket. That was the plan. The plan lasted until approximately 2:47 in the afternoon, which was the moment the elevator doors closed, and the elevator made a sound that no elevator should ever make, and everything went sideways. Literally, briefly, sideways. But let us start from the beginning. The Starlight Mall was the biggest shopping mall in the city. 15 floors of shops and restaurants, and a food court on the 7th floor that smelled permanently of approximately 47 different cuisines simultaneously, and was therefore either wonderful or overwhelming, depending on your feelings about sensory experience. It had an enormous glass atrium in the center that went all the way up to a domed ceiling with a skylight. And in the center of the atrium, visible from every floor, were the elevators. 4 of them in a cluster, with glass walls so you could see through them as you rode up and down, which was either exciting or mildly terrifying, also depending on your feelings about things. Rumi and Mira and Zoey had arrived at midday, because Mira had insisted on being there when the shops opened, and Rumi had pointed out that the shops opened at 10, and Mira had said yes, but she needed 2 hours of breakfast, and getting ready first, which was fair. They had done 3 floors already. Mira had bought 2 things she needed, and 4 things she did not need, but which she felt strongly about. Zoey had found a book in the small independent bookshop on the 3rd floor and was carrying it with the quiet happiness of someone who has found exactly the right thing. Rumi had found the jacket on the 4th floor and was still thinking about it. They were heading to the 7th floor for noodles. Elevator or escalator, Mira said. Elevator is faster, Rumi said. Elevator it is, said Mira, already pressing the button. The elevator arrived promptly. The doors opened with a cheerful ding. It was a perfectly normal elevator, glass-walled, with a shiny panel of floor buttons, and a small mirror on the back wall, and the faint smell of someone's takeaway coffee that had been eaten on a previous journey. They got in. Rumi pressed 7. The doors closed. The elevator went up. Floor 5, floor 6, and then the elevator made a sound. A deep, complicated mechanical sound that started somewhere in the workings above them and traveled down through the walls and the floor. A sound like something very large deciding it was not going to do what it was supposed to do anymore. A sound like a machine clearing its throat before making an announcement nobody was going to enjoy. Then it stopped between floor 6 and floor 7. Just stopped. No ding. No doors opening. Just stillness, and the 3 of them standing in a glass elevator between 2 floors in the middle of a 15-story atrium, with shoppers on every level going about their Saturday, completely unaware. A beat of silence. Did we stop? Mira said. Yes, said Rumi. Are we supposed to stop here? No, said Zoey. Another beat. Okay, said Mira. Okay, that's fine. Elevators stop sometimes. There's a button. There's definitely a button for this. She looked at the panel. There was indeed a button, the emergency one with the little bell symbol. She pressed it. A bell rang somewhere far away in the building. Nothing else happened. It rang, Mira said encouragingly. Yes, said Rumi. Someone will come, Mira said. Yes, said Zoey. They waited. The elevator was very still. The atrium outside the glass walls was very busy. People on other floors walking past, shopping bags swinging, children pointing at things in windows. A man on floor 8 eating a very large pretzel with complete focus and dedication. None of them looked at the elevator. Nobody had noticed yet. How long do you think we wait before calling someone? Mira said. I think we call someone now, Rumi said, and took out her phone. She called Bobby first, because Bobby was always first. Bobby answered on the second ring with his usual prompt and professional hello. Bobby, said Rumi, we are stuck in an elevator. Pause. A very Bobby pause, the kind that meant he was already reaching for his clipboard. Which elevator? Said Bobby. The one in Starlight Mall. Between 6 and 7. Are you all safe? Completely just stuck. I will call mall management immediately, Bobby said. Do not panic. Do not do anything. panicking, Rumi said. Myra, said Bobby, as though Rumi had not spoken. Tell Myra specifically not to panic. I can hear you, Bobby, said Myra loudly. I know, said Bobby. Don't panic. I'm not panicking. Good, keep not panicking. I'll be there in 20 minutes. And he hung up. Rumi put her phone away and looked at Myra and Zoey. He'll sort it out, she said. Of course he will, said Zoey, who had already opened her notebook and was reading it with complete serenity, leaning against the elevator, all as though this were a perfectly normal place to read, which for Zoey it apparently was. Myra was looking out through the glass wall of the atrium at all the floors of people and shops and the great dome of the skylight far above. You know, she said thoughtfully, I've always wanted to see what the mall looked like from inside the elevator, stuck between floors. This is genuinely a unique perspective. Rumi looked at her. I'm making the best of it, Myra said. I know, said Rumi. I love that about you. Now, while Rumi was calling Bobby, Myra had also sent a message to the HUNTRX group chat, which also contained the Saja Boys, because at some point over the previous months, the boundaries between the two groups had become entirely porous, and the Saja Boys were simply in the group, yet now and nobody had made a formal decision about it. It had just happened, the way these things do. The message said, we are stuck in the elevator in Starlight Mall between FLORS 6 and 7. Send help. She had added 3 elevator emojis, 2 alarm emojis, and one that was technically a siren. But she felt captured the energy. The message was read by all 5 Saja Boys within approximately 90 seconds. Because the Saja Boys had the kind of relationship with their phones that meant they were never more than a few seconds from reading any message ever sent to them. Jinu typed back first, on our way. That was it, just that. No questions, no details, just on our way, which Myra read and felt immediately better about. The feathered hat Saja Boy typed. Which elevator exactly? Myra typed. The glass one in the middle. Feathered hat. There are 4 glass ones in the middle. Myra, the one we are in. Feathered hat. That is not helpful information. Myra, the one that is stuck. Feathered hat. Okay, that helps. The toast Saja Boy typed. Should we bring snacks? Myra stared at this message for a moment and then typed back. Yes, actually, yes please. Zoey looked up from her book. Are the Saja Boys coming? Yes, said Myra. Good, said Zoey, and went back to her book. Rumi was less certain that this was entirely good, but she was willing to be persuaded. 20 minutes passed. The elevator remained stuck. Myra had moved from finding their unique perspective interesting to finding it less interesting to finding it quite boring, actually. She had eaten the emergency chocolate bar she kept in her bag and performed a full review of it for Rumi and Zoey, which had taken 6 minutes and was a thoroughly professional review. Zoey had read 30 pages. Rumi had decided definitively about the jacket. mentally composed the argument she was going to use on herself later to justify buying it. Then the elevator moved. Not up, not down. It shuddered. A full body shudder, the whole elevator vibrating from floor to ceiling, the lights flickering once, twice, and then the elevator lurched, dropped approximately half a foot very quickly, and stopped again. Mira grabbed the wall. Rumi grabbed Mira. Zoey closed her book on her finger to save her page. "Okay," said Mira after a moment. "That was new. The mechanism is destabilizing," Zoey said calmly. "It is trying to correct itself and making it worse." "Is that dangerous?" Mira asked. "No," said Zoey, "but it is going to keep doing that." As if to prove her point, the elevator shuddered again, this time going up slightly rather than down, maybe a foot, and then stopping again, and the lights flickered for a longer moment before coming back. "Okay," said Rumi. She pressed the emergency button again. The bell rang again far away. Still nothing. She pressed the intercom button. Static. She pressed it again. More static. She pressed it a third time, and a very crackly voice said something completely unintelligible. And then there was silence. Mall management is very much on top of this, Mira said. Bobby said 20 minutes, Rumi said. Bobby has been 20 minutes for 25 minutes, said Mira. Bobby is always exactly on time, Rumi said. He said 20 minutes. 3 minutes later, as though summoned by this defense of his punctuality, Bobby called. "I am at the mall," Bobby said. "I have spoken to mall management. They are aware of the situation. Their engineer is on the way, however." A pause. "He is coming from the other side of the city, and there may be some delay." "How much delay?" Rumi asked. "They were not entirely specific," Bobby said carefully. "Bobby, possibly up to 2 hours." 2 hours, Rumi said. "Possibly," Bobby said. "I am working on it. Are you comfortable? Do you have water? Do you have snacks?" Mira ate the emergency chocolate. "I'll send snacks up," Bobby said immediately. And the fact that he said this, without questioning, how he was going to send snacks up to a stuck elevator, was very Bobby and very comforting. Rumi hung up and looked at Mira and Zoey. 2 hours, she said. Mira sat down on the elevator floor. "Right," she said. "I'm getting comfortable then." She took off her jacket, folded it, and put it behind her as a cushion. Zoey read to us. Zoey considered this. Then she sat down too, opened her book, and began to read aloud in her calm, beautiful voice, which was, honestly, a very good voice for reading aloud. And within 2 pages, Rumi had also sat down, and the 3 of them were on the elevator floor, and Zoey was reading. And the mall continued its busy Saturday business, outside the glass walls, completely unaware that 3 people were sitting on the floor of a stuck elevator reading a book. This lasted 11 minutes. Then the elevator went up again. This time 3 floors without stopping, shooting from between 6 and 7, all the way to 9, before grinding to a halt with a sound like a very unhappy machine. And Rumi and Mira slid along the floor, and Zoey kept reading, but had to grab the wall for balance with her free hand. 9, said Mira, looking out through the glass. We're on 9 now, or between 9 and 10. Hi. She waved at a small child on floor 9 who was looking at them through the glass with enormous eyes. The child waved back with great enthusiasm. This elevator, said Rumi, is malfunctioning in a very active way. I would like to get off now, Mira said pleasantly. Meanwhile, on the ground floor of Starlight Mall, all 5 Saja Boys had arrived and were standing in the atrium, looking up at the elevator with the focused energy of people who have decided they are going to solve a problem and have not yet been informed of the full complexity of that problem. Bobby was with them, clipboard in hand, and he was on the phone with mall management again, and his voice had taken on the particular quality it got when he was very politely, but very firmly expressing deep dissatisfaction with the situation. Jinu was looking up at the elevator. It was on 9 now, or between 9 and 10. He could see the 3 of them through the glass. Mira waving at something, Rumi looking at her phone, Zoey apparently reading. Right, said Jinu. Options. We could take the stairs, said the feathered hat Saja Boy. We can take the stairs to the floor they're on, said Jinu. But we cannot get them out of the elevator from the staircase. What about the other elevators? Said the sock Saja Boy. Other elevators are working fine, said Bobby, lowering his phone briefly. But they cannot get into this elevator from another elevator. What if we go to the top of the building, said the toast Saja Boy, and lower something down? Everyone looked at him. Lower what down, said Jinu. A rope, said the toast Saja Boy. We don't have a rope, said the sound desk Saja Boy. We could buy one, said the toast Saja Boy. There's a hardware shop on floor 11. We are not lowering them out of the elevator on a rope, Bobby said firmly. They are perfectly safe where they are. We need to speak to the engineer and work with the building systems. I know building systems, said the sound desk Saja Boy. With quiet confidence, everyone looked at him. I fixed the entire sound system of the Crystal Pavilion, he said. I can look at an elevator. Elevators are significantly different from sound systems, Bobby said. Systems are systems, said the sound desk Saja Boy, with the certainty of someone who has never let the details of a situation slow them down. Bobby looked at him for a long moment. Then he looked at his clipboard. Then he looked at the elevator, which chose this moment to shudder visibly and drop 2 floors on its own before stopping again. And the exclamation from inside the elevator was audible even from the ground floor. Fine, said Bobby, but carefully, and nobody does anything without my approval. Up in the elevator, which was now between 7 and 8 again, after its unexpected 2-floor drop. Rumi was on the phone to Jinu. Are you all here? She said. All 5 of us plus Bobby, said Jinu. We're working on it. Please tell me you have a sensible plan. A pause that was slightly too long to be reassuring. We have a plan, said Jinu. Jinu, it's a good plan, mostly. Mostly, Rumi repeated. The mostly is a small percentage, Jinu said. Don't worry about the mostly. Rumi looked at Mira and Zoey. They have a plan, she said. Mostly. Fantastic, said Mira. The first attempt at rescue began 8 minutes later and involved the sound desk, Saja Boy, who had found the elevator control room on the 15th floor with a confidence that turned out to be only partially justified, and who had looked at the control panel for a long moment with the expression of someone who absolutely knows what they are doing, and had pressed a sequence of buttons that he was fairly sure would reset the elevator to its home position on the ground floor. What it actually did was send the elevator to floor 15 at considerable speed. In the elevator, this was an experience. Floor 15, Mira announced, as they shot upward at a pace that pressed them all gently, but firmly into the floor. We are going to floor 15. I can see that, said Rumi. He was holding the wall rail with both hands. This was not the plan, Mira continued. I don't think there was a specific plan, Zoey said, still holding her book, her voice only slightly more tense than usual. The elevator reached 15 and stopped. Hard. The jolt of it threw Mira sideways, and she grabbed Rumi, who grabbed the rail, and Zoey braced against the wall. And for a moment, everyone just stood there at floor 15, processing what had just happened. Then, very slowly, the elevator began to go back down. Not fast this time. Slowly. In a very unhealthy grinding way that suggested the mechanism was now doing several things wrong simultaneously. It got to floor 12 and stopped again. From up on 15, they could hear Bobby's voice, muffled but entirely recognizable in its quality, which was the quality of someone saying something extremely controlled that represented a great deal of restrained feeling. Rumi called Jinu. Was that you? She said. That was not intentional, Jinu said. Everyone is fine up here. How are you? We are on 12. We were on 15 30 seconds ago. Yes, said Jinu. We saw that. We are making some adjustments to the approach. Please tell me the adjustments involve a professional. The professional is stuck in traffic, Jinu said. We are working with what we have. Jinu, we've got this, Jinu said. Give us 15 minutes. Mira had pressed her face against the glass wall and was looking down at the atrium 15 floors below, where tiny figures were moving around. I can see them, she said. I can see the feathered hat from up here. It is very distinctive. It is a very distinctive hat, Zoey agreed. He's pointing at things, Mira said. He's pointing at us, I think. He's waving. She waved back. Down below, the feathered hat Saja Boy had indeed spotted them, and was waving with tremendous enthusiasm. The sock Saja Boy next to him was doing the same. Several other mall shoppers who had now noticed the stuck elevator were also looking up, and a small crowd had begun to gather in the atrium. The way crowds always gather when something interesting is happening. slowly at first, and then all at once. A mall security guard had arrived and was talking to Bobby. And Bobby was showing him things on his clipboard. And the security guard had the look of a man who had dealt with many Saturday mall situations, but not quite this one. The second rescue attempt was the feathered hat Saja Boys' idea, and it involved taking one of the working elevators to floor 12, getting out, and trying to manually open the doors of the stuck elevator from the floor 12 side. This was actually not a terrible idea. Elevator doors can be opened manually in emergencies. This is a real and legitimate thing. The feathered hat Saja Boy had seen it in a documentary once, and he remembered the important parts, mostly. He and the toast Saja Boy took elevator 2 to floor 12 and found the stuck elevator doors, and the feathered hat Saja Boy examined them with professional confidence, and then tried to open them. They did not open. He tried harder. They remained closed. There's a specific technique, said the toast Saja Boy helpfully. I know there's a specific technique, said the feathered hat Saja Boy, trying the specific technique, which he was approximately 60% sure he remembered correctly. The doors remained firmly closed. Inside the elevator, Rumi and Mira and Zoey could hear them on the other side. They could hear the feathered hat Saja Boy trying the doors with increasing effort, and they could hear the toast Saja Boy making suggestions. And they could hear a third voice, which turned out to be a mall security guard who had followed them up and was explaining that this was not recommended. We know it's not recommended, said the feathered hat Saja Boy. We are doing it anyway. Sir, it's fine. I've seen this done. In a documentary, said the toast Saja Boy. In a very good documentary, said the feathered hat Saja Boy. Sir, I really must insist. And then the elevator moved again. It went down. From 12 back down to 9, where it stopped with its characteristic grinding shudder. And the feathered hat Saja Boy was left at 12, looking at empty elevator doors that were no longer blocked by an elevator. A moment of silence. It moved, said the toast Saja Boy. I noticed, said the feathered hat Saja Boy. We're on 9. Myra's voice came up from below, muffled but audible. It went down again. The feathered hat Saja Boy looked at the toast Saja Boy. The toast Saja Boy looked back. They took elevator 2 back down to 9. On 9, a considerably larger crowd had gathered. Word had spread through the mall the way word always spreads through malls on a Saturday, quickly and with embellishment. And the general understanding among the mall's Saturday shoppers was that there were people stuck in the elevator, which was true, and that it had been going up and down on its own, which was also true, and that there were people on the outside trying to rescue them, which was true, but generous as a description of what was happening. Bobby had established what he privately called the command center at a table outside the food court on the 9th floor, which had a direct line of sight to the elevator. And he had his clipboard and his phone and a cup of tea that a very kind food court worker had brought him unbidden. apparently reading correctly that he was a man who needed tea, and he was coordinating everything with focused calm. Jinu came and sat at the table. He had been thinking. He did this sometimes, went quiet and still, and you could almost see him thinking, working through something from every angle. And when he came out the other side, he always had something worth hearing. The problem, Jinu said, is the mechanism is fighting itself. Every time we try to correct it from the outside, we make it worse because the system doesn't know which instruction to follow. It gets two signals and panics. Bobby looked at him over his clipboard. That is actually a very accurate diagnosis, he said. The engineer said the same thing on the phone. So the solution, Jinu continued, is to give it one clear instruction. Not from the control panel, not from the buttons inside, not from the external door mechanism. One instruction from the override system that the elevator cannot argue with. The override system requires an access code, Bobby said. Yes, said Jinu. What is the access code? Bobby looked at his clipboard. Then he turned it around so Jinu could see the page where, in small, neat handwriting, was written a sequence of numbers. Jinu stared at him. You have the access code. Mall management gave it to me, Bobby said. 20 minutes ago. I have been waiting to use it at the appropriate moment. Bobby, said Jinu. Why didn't you use it earlier? Because, Bobby said, with great dignity, I wanted to see what you would all come up with first. A silence. You wanted to see what we would come up with, Jinu repeated. You are all very resourceful, Bobby said. And occasionally, the process is instructive. Jinu looked at Bobby for a long moment. Then he said, Bobby, that elevator has been to floor 15 and back. I know, said Bobby. I was there. And floor 12 and 9 twice. I am aware of the floors, Bobby said. The girls are stuck in it. They are quite comfortable, Bobby said serenely. Zoey is reading. Mira is doing a snack review. There was another pause. Jinu put his head in his hands. Shall we get them out now? Bobby said pleasantly. Yes, Bobby, said Jinu. Let's get them out now. Bobby stood up and straightened his jacket and picked up his clipboard and walked to the elevator control panel on the 9th floor with the composed authority of a man who knows exactly what he is doing, which he did, and he entered the access code, all 8 digits, carefully and correctly. The panel lit up. All of it, every light, a brief blaze of confirmation that the system had received clear and authoritative instruction from someone it could not argue with, and then smoothly, without a shudder or a grind or a drop or a lurch, the elevator descended. Floor 8, floor 7, floor 6, floor 5, floor 4, floor 3, floor 2, ground floor. A ding. The doors opened, and out came Rumi, Mira, and Zoey. Into the ground floor of Starlight Mall. Into the light and the Saturday noise, and the smell of 47 cuisines, and the small crowd of shoppers who had gathered, and who gave a spontaneous and genuinely warm round of applause. Because crowds at malls on Saturdays are fundamentally kind-hearted when it comes down to it. Myra walked out first with her arms raised like someone completing a sporting event, which got the biggest cheer. Zoey walked out with her book open on her finger, serene as always, which got an appreciative murmur. And Rumi walked out last, laughing, actually laughing. The free, full laugh of someone who has been through something ridiculous and come out the other side. The 5 Saja Boys were there. The feathered hat Saja Boy had come back down from 9 and was standing with his hat on at its most distinguished angle. The toast Saja Boy was holding a bag which turned out to contain the snacks he had indeed brought, arriving slightly late but very welcome. The socks Saja Boy was in his socks. The sound desk Saja Boy was looking at the elevator panel with the expression of someone making technical notes for future reference. And Jinu was standing slightly apart from the others. And when Rumi came out, he did not say anything. He just looked at her with that expression of his, the one that was not quite the smirk and not quite the smile, but somewhere warmer than either. And she looked back and nodded once, and that was sufficient. And Bobby was there, clipboard under his arm, thermos in hand, looking at all of them with the satisfied expression of a man whose charges are safe and accounted for. You had the code the whole time, Myra said to him. I did, Bobby confirmed. Bobby, you were perfectly safe, Bobby said. And Zoey got 30 pages read. Myra stared at him. Then she turned to the crowd that was still milling around and said, loudly and with great feeling, everyone, this man, and pointed at Bobby, and the crowd, delighted, gave Bobby a round of applause, and Bobby went very slightly pink, but stood very straight, and said thank you with great dignity. They found a table at the food court on the 7th floor, all 9 of them, and the food came, and it was good. The noodles that Rumi had originally been going to the 7th floor for, plus dumplings, because Myra felt strongly about dumplings. And the toast Saja Boys snacks were distributed as well. And Bobby had somehow produced almond pastries from his bag, which was a mystery nobody investigated because the pastries were very good. They sat there for a long time after the food was finished, talking and laughing. And Myra did the full dramatic retelling of the elevator going to floor 15, which she delivered with such theatrical commitment that the table next to them started listening and laughed at the appropriate moments. The feathered hat Saja Boy did his own retelling of the door-opening attempt on floor 12, which was even more dramatic and only slightly less accurate. The sound desk, Saja Boy, gave a detailed technical analysis of what had been wrong with the elevator mechanism that was completely accurate and completely incomprehensible to everyone except possibly Zoey. And Jinu sat at the end of the table and watched his people and listened to all of it and laughed, really laughed. The rare full laugh that suited him so much more than the smirk, and that appeared more often these days than it used to. And each time it did everyone around him felt, without saying so, that this was a good thing. A very good thing. The best kind of thing. Bobby made a note on his clipboard. On this occasion, the note said, "All present and correct," and underneath it, in the same small, neat handwriting as extraordinary on the island night, he wrote, "What a lot they are." And he did not underline it, but it did not need underlining, because it was true in the plainest and simplest way, without any decoration. They left the mall at 6 in the evening, as the Saturday light was going gold and long across the city, and the shops were beginning to think about closing, and the food court was filling up with the dinner crowd. They came out through the main entrance together, all 9 of them, into the warm evening city, and stood on the pavement for a moment, doing the end of a good day thing, where nobody wants to be the first to say goodbye, because the day has been good, and goodbyes are the formal acknowledgement that it is ending. Mira had bought 3 more things in the aftermath of the rescue, having gone back to do more shopping while the others ate, which was very Mira. Zoey had finished 14 more pages of the book and declared it excellent. And Rumi had gone back to the 4th floor and bought the jacket, because it was a genuinely great jacket, and the elevator ordeal had clarified her priorities in terms of things that mattered. She was wearing it now. It was, as anticipated, worth every penny. "Good jacket," said Jinu, as they stood on the pavement. "I know," said Rumi. "You were always going to buy it. I know that too." A pause. The city moved around them in its warm evening way. The streetlights were coming on. Somewhere nearby, a musician was playing something gentle on a corner, the notes drifting across the pavement and through the evening air. "Next time you're stuck in an elevator," Jinu said, "maybe call someone with the access code first." "Next time," Rumi said, "maybe someone could tell us they have the access code before the elevator goes to floor 15. They looked at each other. Rumi raised an eyebrow. Jinu pressed his mouth together in a line that was definitely suppressing something. Then they both looked at Bobby, who was checking something on his clipboard with perfect composure and complete innocence. "Bobby," they said simultaneously, and said Bobby without looking up. They let it go. There was really nothing to say that the situation had not already said. And besides, they were out, they were safe, they were together. The food had been good, and the jacket was excellent, and the city was beautiful in the evening light. And somewhere above them, the first star of the night was appearing, small and bright and steady. Mira linked her arm through Rumi's on one side and Zoey's on the other, and tipped her head back and looked up at the darkening sky, and said, with great contentment, "Can we do this again next Saturday?" "The elevator part," said the feathered hat Saja Boy. "The all of it part," said Mira, and everyone, in their own way, said yes. They said their good evenings on the pavement and drifted away in their different directions, back into the city and their lives and their homes, carrying the day with them warmly. Rumi walked home through the golden evening streets in her excellent new jacket and felt entirely, completely happy in the uncomplicated way that is actually the best kind of happy. nothing dramatic about it. Nothing that required a magical island, or an unmapped dream kingdom, or an ancient creature with green eyes. Just a good day with good people, and a jacket she loved, and noodles from the food court, and the memory of everyone laughing around that table, and Derpy waiting at home on his pale blue sofa. She let herself into the flat, and Derpy opened one amber eye from his sofa and assessed the jacket with the focused discernment of a cat who takes these things seriously, and apparently approved of it, because he closed the eye again and went back to sleep. Rumi sat down next to him on the sofa, which was technically his sofa, but which he permitted her to use in the evenings out of the generosity of his heart. And she leaned back and looked at the ceiling and listened to the city outside and felt the good tiredness of a Saturday well spent settling into her bones. She thought about the elevator, the grinding shudder of it, the unexpected trip to floor 15, Mira sliding across the floor, Zoey reading through all of it with serene focus, the sound desk Saja Boy pressing buttons on the control panel with total confidence and absolutely no justification, the feathered hat Saja Boy and his documentary knowledge of door-opening techniques, Bobby sitting at his table on floor 9 with his tea and his clipboard and his access code, watching everything with the calm of a man who had never for one moment been worried, because he had always known exactly how this was going to end. She laughed, a quiet, private, happy laugh to herself, to Derpy, to the ceiling. Derpy's tail moved once in acknowledgement. Outside the window, the city was settling into its nighttime self. The warm amber of the streetlights coming up, the sounds of the evening all around, and the stars appearing one by one in the darkening sky. And it was a perfectly ordinary Saturday evening in a perfectly ordinary city, and everything was exactly right. Now, little one, it is time. The mall is closing. The food court is quiet. The elevator is fixed and still, sitting on the ground floor where it belongs. Doors closed, lights off, behaving itself for the first time all day. Mira is home, surrounded by her shopping and her soft toys, eating the last of the toast Saja Boys snacks, and completely content. Zoey is home in her gray room, book open, reading by the lamp, peaceful as still water. Bobby is home in his armchair, clipboard on the table, thermos beside it, going over the day's notes with a small, satisfied smile that he would absolutely deny if anyone mentioned it. The Saja Boys are home, all 5 of them, and the feathered hat is on the hook by the door, and the socks are on the floor, and the sound desk Saja Boy is writing up his technical analysis of the elevator malfunction in a notebook that nobody asked him to keep, but that he keeps anyway, because systems are systems and systems are interesting. And Jinu is somewhere in the city, walking, hands in his pockets, thinking about the day and smiling about it. The real, warm, private smile that lives underneath all the other things. And Rumi is on Derpy's sofa, eyes closed, her excellent jacket draped over the arm beside her, and Derpy is warm against her side, and the city is breathing its slow night breath outside the window. And you are in your warm, safe bed. Let your body sink down into the soft. Let your arms go heavy. Let your legs go still. Let your breathing slow all the way down. In and out. In and out. All the way down to the quiet and the warm and the good. Your dream is ready. It has been waiting for you all day. Close your eyes. There it is. Good night, little one. Good night, face crescent sparkles.